When you shift that identity, you are now thinking in context of who you need to be, what your zone of genius is, and how might you hold on to the things that are uniquely you, that amplify your innate human abilities in collaboration with AI, not competing with AI.
Welcome to the /podcast, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. I'm your host, James Carman, and today we're talking to Nikki Barua. Nikki Barua is a serial entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and globally recognized expert on transformation. She's the CEO and co-founder of Flipwork, a human plus agentic platform helping organizations reinvent the future of work. For more than 25 years, Nikki has helped global brands transform culture, strategy, and capability, grounded in a core belief that people, not just technology, drive lasting change. A high-growth tech founder and best-selling author, she's also a sought-after voice on resilience and reinvention, with her work featured in CNBC, Bloomberg, Fortune, and Forbes. Welcome to the /, Nikki.
Thanks for inviting me, James. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. I think I read in your bio that, do you have like 3 master's degrees? Is that right?
You know what it really means? I was very confused about what I really wanted to do.
I think I could have been a professional student. I'm like envious of that. I would love to just go back to university and stay there. Like, not like Van Wilder style, but
Yeah.
like I just love, learning. So I'm envious of that. That would have been awesome.
It did teach me more than a specific subject matter. It did teach me the skill of learning and the rigor of structured thinking. So I'm grateful for that. And eventually I did find my way. So
Yeah.
there's hope.
Well, learning how to learn. That is a skill that you need for the rest of your life. So that's essential for sure. Flipwork. Tell us, what is Flipwork about?
So Flipwork helps companies close the exponential divide, as I call it, where AI is changing work faster than people can change how they work. And so in that gap, that's where ROI gets lost. That's where opportunity is lost, and companies are simply investing on the technology side while the people get left behind. So Flipwork is a human and agentic system that takes organizations step by step through first helping them reinvent how their people think, how they work, to helping teams adapt their workflows and their processes for human machine collaboration, and then introducing the last part is the technology and the AI agents that provide the leverage. Ultimately, the purpose of Flipwork is simply to help companies transition from the pre-AI era and to the post-AI era and really unlock that exponential capability in their people.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. We already mentioned kind of you have a bit of an academic background with multiple degrees and whatnot, but tell us a little bit more about what does your path look like? How did you get to where you are now? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
It was really windy.
A lot of people are. That's good, though.
The through line of my story has really been all about reinvention. As a young kid growing up in India, I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life, and that's why my first master's was in economics, and that was big picture thinker. I loved the idea of seeing how things worked at the macro level, only to realize, well, what do you do with a master's in economics? How do you apply it? Which then led me to my MBA in strategy. And it was wonderful to kind of, be able to come to the United States and, get the grounding in working in America and thinking about solving big picture problems. But that in itself felt like it was limited because this was where technology was really taking off as a force in business, in the 90s. And so I did a master's in technology and information systems and early AI as well. And so the combination of those 3 things, sort of like art, science, and business, what was most interesting that came out of that was the unique perspectives at the intersectionality of all 3 disciplines. And that kind of led to my career innovation because it was sort of big picture thinking followed by very systems, structured analysis that allowed me to build a great career in innovation, pursue that at large corporations and build a corporate career really helping elephants run, helping the world's largest companies adapt to change and execute faster. And from there, the height of my corporate career, kind of walked away from all of that and pursued my entrepreneurial dreams and built up businesses that effectively did the same kind of thing of just really helping people and organizations adapt to change. And I've seen it through every iteration of, the latest tech disruption that causes companies to then adapt to the next new thing. What has remained, the same is every time there's a disruption, the old formula goes away and there's a new playbook that has to be adopted. And that's where change becomes really, complex and difficult. Where we are today is that speed and scale of change is unlike anything we've seen before. So it requires not just regular change management, it requires true reinvention. And when I look back at my own personal journey, it's sort of everything I've done up until this point has prepared me to meet the moment and really translate not just my lived experience of what it takes for an individual to reinvent, but all of the experiences in helping large organizations reinvent as well.
Well, don't downplay the economics thing. I tell you what, my brother-in-law he has a PhD in economics. He's a professor, and just conversations with him are fascinating. Economists think differently than we do, and I never took any classes in economics, which probably
Yeah.
shows. But I
I
think
have to say, it's
everyone
still my
should.
favorite subject. It's still the thing that I geek out on. And
Hmm.
it just teaches you to look at the world so
It
differently.
does. It
No
does.
matter what happens, it makes sense in terms of the different forces that shape the world we live in.
Yeah, and people's like motivations and the economists just look at the world so much different. Like I'll be having a conversation with him, and I'll say, "Well, I think it's this." He's like, "Well, actually, there's a principle in economics that's blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." So it's just that world is fascinating to me. I need to like sit down and do some more like deep dive on that stuff to just educate myself. But yeah, I
Yeah.
always find
We
myself
we make really
fascinated.
interesting dinner party guests, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where it happens. All the holidays we get together and we sit around and talk about that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's always very, very interesting. I really enjoy my time with my brother-in-law. So, okay. So you're talking about, you've been in change management, you've worked in change management for like quite some time and, changing within organizations. You're mentioning how these playbooks don't work anymore, or the traditional playbooks. So what's wrong with the traditional playbook? What do they depend on? How do they not work anymore? Why do they not work anymore?
It's the context in which change is applied. Historically, when we consider adapting to change, the pace of that change was a lot slower. So you had the luxury of saying, oh, here's this new interruption to our way of life. Let's figure out, how we go from, the old workflows or the old ways, and here's this new way, and then let's do the gap analysis and then start slowly implementing that change. And you can do that over 18 to 24 months. And it can be episodic where there's a start date and end date to that change
Hmm.
period. And then you're set. You can remain in status quo for a period of time and, get the advantages of that change. You can get the return of all of the change you implemented.
Hmm.
That's not the world we live in anymore. Now the change is so fast and continuous that if you have episodic change management and it's top down and it's outside in, the CEO at the top is mandating the change and everybody else is a minion who's following that, or they bring in expensive consultants who come and do this long drawn out, very expensive analysis and then deploy the change. By the time that change is implemented, everything would have changed again.
Mm.
And, you know, technology is not changing annually, it's changing monthly or even weekly.
Yeah.
You can't have old change management methods. So what you need is something that's continuous. And more importantly, something that is coming from the inside out, where it's really empowering the individuals to discover what they need to shift. And that's a very different playbook than what has existed in the past.
So do you feel like AI is unique in that aspect? Because we've always had technological change, and initially when something new comes out, everybody's
Mhm.
hot to trot, and they're all investigating it. Kind of, it dies off. Do you feel like are we at a new normal? Is this pace of change like this? It's just this is where we are now, and this is where the world we live in from now on.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the greatest disruption in modern human history. And really look at it from two vectors. One is The evolution of the technology itself. You look at any prior major technologies that have come about. The technology itself did take a while to evolve. It wasn't exponential in terms of its own evolution. That
Hmm.
is not true with AI. It's truly exponential in ways that we can't even quantify. The second vector is the scale of mass adoption. You look at previous technologies, it took, in some cases, almost decades for there to be true global mass adoption. That is, again, not the case with AI. It's the mass adoption is exponential again. So when you consider those two aspects, where the evolution of the core tech and the mass adoption rate, both of those, when those are exponential, that changes the game completely in terms of how we fit into that context.
And I maybe want to take a sec because I have a follow up question to this one. But like you mentioned that you studied AI in university and in some of your studies. What era of AI were you studying?
Archaic. We're talking about the 90s. So it's, for me, what it provided was a glimpse into what the future could look like. It wasn't so much about we're talking rudimentary early tech. So it wasn't so much about what you learned in that, but seeing the possibilities as a business person, to me, that was what was most fascinating, is seeing, wow, the day this is kind of comes of age and is in the hands of everybody, it's going to be completely game changing. And that's what we're seeing, what we're seeing in terms of models today and the way it's changing. It is going to leave a mark in ways that we never anticipated.
Yeah, I did a talk not long ago about kind of the history of AI and how we got here, from the 1950s on, post World War II, to now. And you kind of had those two AI winters, and it sounds like you were studying during one of them, those winters. So the first one was an algorithmic winter where we couldn't quite get, that back propagation working and whatnot. And then
Hmm.
the second winter was a data winter, right? We just didn't have enough data to do all these
Yeah,
models.
to do the models.
I feel like like AI has been waiting to pounce on the world for decades, and we're finally, like, all of the pieces have finally fallen into place. We got enough data, we got enough compute to put it all together, and like this explosion is just it's insane. I think this has been a
Yeah.
long time in the making, but you feel
It's
like
also the
it's
infrastructure capabilities
yeah,
too, though, right?
yeah.
Like today we have things like, the power grids and all of those things, the resources that are necessary for there to be a perfect storm
Mm.
of everything coming together that is now sort of unleashing the beast, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And you feel like and it's got a long way to go. I mean, there's a lot of these ideas that kind of sat pent up for a while because of those winters. That the investment wasn't happening, but the technology was there. I mean, the ideas were there. We didn't have enough data to uncover them and to keep working. But you do feel like we're maybe at this is our new normal. Is that
New normal, but still very early stages of the new.
Mm,
And what'll be most fascinating is to see how the human machine collaboration kind of evolves exponentially from this, because it's sort of what used to be the domain of experts and scientists for the last 30 years or so is now out in the open, and
mm.
it's in the hands of everyone that can experiment with it. So what comes out of that in terms of the possibilities, we're at very early stages for that, but it is definitely the new normal.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it is definitely unique. I mean, this is absolutely unique, and as you said, it's the most disruptive we've seen in modern history for sure. You talk about instead of kind of like the change management, it's almost this notion of you talk about reinvention, right?
Mhm,
Um, what does reinvention? What does that look like for us? Even at like the human level and
mhm.
organizational level, but at the human level, what does that even look like?
It starts with identity, because in order for us to reinvent ourselves, we can shift into a new state while holding on to our old identities.
Mm,
And so much of what leaders and executives derive their sense of identity on is their base of knowledge or expertise. So I'm a C-suite executive. I've got 25 years of experience. I've worked at all of these major brands. I know I'm a subject matter or thought leader in this area. And this is my title or this is my power structure. All of those form an identity. And when we hold on to that, we can shift into the next version of what is required because you kind of have to unlearn and shed a lot of that previous stuff. And so identity change, no matter what level you are at, really begins the starts the foundation of what reinvention can happen. When you shift that identity, you are now thinking in context of who you need to be, what your zone of genius is, and how might you hold on to the things that are uniquely you, that amplify your innate human abilities in collaboration with AI, not competing with AI, where you get amplified instead of replaced because you've identified what that new identity looks like. But let's take, for example, someone whose identity is built on hard work. And that's their conditioning, that they are valued because they're first in, last out, and they put in, you know 10-hour days, and they pride themselves on that identity. I'm a hard worker. I put in a lot of effort. I've earned my stripes because of the discipline and determination I bring to the table. If effort is still the cornerstone of your identity, you're actually going to subconsciously resist AI and what this future looks like, because you're still valuing yourself and shaping your identity around that effort and hard work. So until you shed that and shift from effort to value, and that value creation is focused on outcomes, not on output.
Mm.
When you're able to make that transition, that's when you can truly embrace what that future you needs to look like. And from that identity, then you go into behavior shifts or skill shifts and all of that. Those become a lot easier to layer on when you've made the identity shift.
So I love that though. If you're all about like this is the hard work, I was putting in the 10-hour days, and we have technology that makes it so that that's not necessary anymore.
Right.
That
Yeah,
but
and
it
it's
hurts.
pretty threatening when you consider that
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
for 20 years have worked a certain way, and now you can see a machine doing it in minutes, if not seconds. How do you derive your sense of worth or your sense of value in the workplace unless you're able to transition to something new and something that's still higher value and still relevant? You're essentially looking at yourself getting obsolete, actively getting obsolete, and that's a pretty threatening place to be.
Yeah. So what is the new superpower? And if the power was before, my superpower or someone's superpower was hard work and long hours and being able to go without sleep and those sort of things. What's
Mhm.
what's the superpower of the 2030s and the 2040s? What is that?
Superpower is the meta skill of learning and adaptability. You will never know everything. In fact, every day there'll be more things that you don't know than the things that you do know. It doesn't matter how educated, experienced you are. The proportion of things you don't know is going to keep increasing, and the environment is going to be more and more uncertainty. So you're basically walking through darkness, not knowing what's ahead, and there's a lot that you don't know. So your superpower really comes down to your ability to adapt to that, and master and trust that you can learn and figure it out. In the workplace, we're going to see the shift from people moving from doers to directors. And what I mean by that is, instead of it being about, getting tasks done, it's about orchestrating outcomes. So the orchestrators, being able to do that, because you might end up with a team of AI agents. What do you do then? You're not the one who's doing the work, but you have to be able to orchestrate the outcomes. And so that requires leaning on your judgment, your wisdom, your perspective, your critical thinking, creativity, all of those skills.
And is it being able to cast a vision farther out? Is that going to be something? I feel like if we can accelerate how quickly we move, being able to see farther down the road, is it that might be another one of those superpowers?
Well, imagination. I mean, it's what makes us uniquely human, is our ability to imagine. And so, what we have now is infinite intelligence at disposable. What we have to bring to the table, though, is that infinite imagination. When you combine infinite imagination with infinite intelligence and power, now you can achieve anything or solve humanity's greatest challenges.
Yeah, I have a paper I'm working on that kind of talks about how it actually has an economics angle to it from my brother-in-law. I have to give
Yeah.
him his props there, but that it kind of talks about like we have forever kind of been at this throttle point. Our imagination I think our imagination is greater than we know, right? We
Hmm.
have a greater power there than we know, but we've kind of been throttled by our throughput, our ability to produce output.
Hmm.
Um, and I kind of just like thinking of like product folks, right? You know,
Hmm.
you're thinking of all the cool things we can do with our products and stuff like that, but we're hindered by the amount of money it costs. It's very cost prohibitive to
Yeah.
build all these cool, fancy features. So those folks were, you know, I'm not saying they're phoning it in, but they were just held back by our inability to move fast enough. At least if you had an infinite amount of money, maybe you could. But
Hmm.
um, so that's something that I think that we're going to start to see as people start to recalibrate themselves. I think that creativity and that vision, that those sort of things are
Hmm.
we're gonna see um, things we've never seen in ourselves before. I don't know. That's kind of my
Well, we're not
hypothesis.
resource constrained
Right.
in the same way that we used to be. And so the only thing that's going to constrain the impact we create in the world and the mark we leave is simply our own imagination and our
Mm,
willingness to pursue it, because you can say the resources don't exist or that you don't have access to it. So that's, a pretty exciting thing when you think about just the power that it unleashes in terms of human potential. That's incredible. Um, I also believe that it's going to be the golden age of entrepreneurship, because you're going to see more and more people just bring their ideas to life, because you don't need that much capital or that much such a large headcount anymore just to get a business off the ground. And some of it, people likely also get forced into it as larger companies shrink in terms of their sizes. But that means we're going to see just incredible creativity come to life, and lots of interesting solutions that we'll see.
yeah, one of our guests said something along the lines of, I think as of AI as almost my co-founder in my startup, right? So that's amazing. Just kind of way to think about this new technology. That's it's just unleashing a whole lot of yeah uncapped potential, right? And or what it not uncapped, but like just we haven't been able to capitalize on that potential that
Hmm.
we have for so long. You mentioned that some folks feel a resistance to AI, and I have seen that. What do you think's behind that? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else? What do you think around that resistance to AI that's going on in the market right now?
I think overall, there's probably more enthusiasm for the technology, simply because people are, the AI has now been democratized. At least generative AI is democratized, and people are experiencing just the power and benefits of it. So there's general enthusiasm, but there's also a lot of overwhelm. So the resistance isn't coming from lack of enthusiasm. The resistance or slow adoption is really the result of confusion. This
Mm,
overwhelm of, my gosh, like by the time I master this one thing, there's 20 new things that come in within the same 24-hour period. I can't keep up. And the third piece is not understanding, how does that fit into how I think, work, or collaborate? Like, how does it change my way of being and my way of working? That is an area that even companies aren't really providing guidance to their employees to say, you know, it's not just a tool, like it's not just giving a license and saying, here is a tool that you can now use, but actually incorporating how does that shift their way of working. Until that transition happens, it remains a toy that you play with, but not a real, value add that transforms, how you work or think or do your job. And that's where there's resistance and confusion and overwhelm of trying to make sense of it. A lot of the uh, work that we've done, the most common theme that I can point out is that it's, again, either an identity shift issue of,
mhm.
the old me works this way and derives value this way. I can use the technology, but I just don't know how the new me emerges from that to truly make this sort of a co-founder, co-worker type of relationship. How do I let go of control? How do I let go of the things that I derive value from? And how do I truly discover my agentic twin, if you will, to do more together? And so it's either an identity or values conflict, or it's confusion and overwhelm of not knowing how to make sense of it all.
Yeah, and I think some of it is like if I use I've seen this, if I use AI or something to help me do my job faster, And then
Mhm.
that work product is probably better than I was able to do on my own. A lot of times it is, if if I'm being honest. But then kind of presenting that work product as my work, without giving, it's almost
Mhm.
like I'm plagiarizing, right?
Yeah.
I see that as a little bit of reluctance there in the market that, it almost feels dirty, like
Yeah.
you're leveraging these tools and presenting the work as your own. Have you seen some of that?
Yeah, I mean, those are. I remember this one conversation with someone who uh, worked in engineering. I mean, worked as an engineer in a product development of a pretty large high tech company. And you would think an engineer or a techie would be first to adopt AI and be at the forefront of it, but there was a lot of resistance, and it really came down to this sense that they were cheating. If they
Mm,
used AI to do their jobs, and that they were cheating, but that all goes back to how do you define value? If you
mhm.
define value as hours and effort, then yeah, you're cheating. But if you define value as output and throughput and the outcomes that are enabled as a result of that, then you're not cheating. Then you're just being transparent and showing how you leverage your ingenuity, your creativity and critical thinking skills, and your ability to have context of what actually matters to the end user or the people who you're building products for, and then leverage, the technology to simply get to that faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed, like, even with my own children, um, my 17-year-old, my daughter, she is very reluctant to use AI. She's very
Hmm.
against AI. When I tell her the things I'm doing with AI, she's like, "Oh, pff," almost like looking down on me. Like, what are you doing
Yeah.
using that cheat code for life kind of thing? Have you noticed the same phenomenon that the younger folks seem like they're the ones that are reluctant?
Yeah, there's a huge erosion of trust. I think, because whether it's media or, just the academic environment where there's a question of, it's not really encouraged. I think there's a trust gap that's formed of not knowing whether that is something that they can lean on and what its purpose is. And there's also a lot of anxiety and frankly, to some degree, a little hopelessness of
Mm,
what does my future look like when I graduate? Is there going to be a job? And, what does that mean in terms of me building the skills and competencies for a long-term career? Is this truly a partner? Is this replacing me because I'm so early stage? I don't even have the benefit of experience and wisdom built over years that I can bring to the table. So there's a lot of conflicting emotions around that. And my advice to young people, that are just starting out is really, three part is number one, you have to double down on the things that make you, uniquely human that are not going to be replaced by the technology, right? Build those skills. So whether it's relationship skills, whether it's communication skills or creativity, hone those skills, but really look at, how you can leverage AI and gain that fluency so that you can hone and strengthen those skills with AI as opposed to just doing it alone. That gives you an advantage in that. And thirdly, build the skill of adaptability. Be someone who can adapt to any kind of environment. If you do it that way, now you've distinguished yourself and you certainly made yourself more valuable, um, even in the entry level job, because you're not coming in to do grunt work anymore because AI can do that. We're seeing a shrinking of those entry level jobs. So instead, you're coming in as someone who is bringing unique value and the AI fluency and the adaptability to navigate and actually create more impact, even in that entry level job.
yeah, you bring up kind of that grunt work. So I know, like, and maybe this is again back to the value system. Where do we place value? But we've often seen um, value in that grunt work, and it has a purpose. I don't know. I'm a martial arts background kind of guy, so I'm thinking of like Karate Kid, right? You think
Mhm.
about Karate Kid. Daniel sounds like, why am I waxing your floor? Why am I painting your fence? So he was building up that muscle memory. So you're not going to be out there painting fences all the time, but the
Mhm.
muscle memory is there. Do you feel like that notion of going through those rudimentary, going through the motions, so to speak, and building up that capability over time, is that no longer valuable any longer in this new age?
I think that remains valuable, but what we use those reps for, that's different.
Okay.
In the past, if we use those reps and the dedication and mastery of the craft was around doing something manually over and over again until it becomes real muscle memory, we're still going to need to do that, but we just apply it in different contexts. Instead of building muscle memory and doing the reps around things that, predictable patterns and repetition, or grunt work like things that machines can do better, don't build muscle memory around that. Don't put your time into building that. Let go of those parts, but hone in the parts that only machines cannot do. For example, providing context or provide having the discernment in things.
Mm,
Grow your base of mastery in those areas.
yeah. Okay. I like that. So So it's just it's a different Mr. Miyagi approach these days than painting
Exactly.
fences and sanding
Right.
floors and whatnot.
But
Okay.
Mr. Miyagi continues to reign supreme. There's no
Of
taking
course.
away. That advice is timeless and absolutely applies.
Yeah, Miyagi-Do all the way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? No Cobra Kai. We're Miyagi-Do all the way. Okay. Yeah, and one thing that you touched on earlier, and this is something that's been interesting to me, and there's a little bit of like buyer's remorse. It's a little bit of like imposter syndrome. I feel like imposter syndrome is just going to get worse in this new era. But like you mentioned, like by the time I finally learn something to the level that I feel like I can be proficient or add some value or do something with this, 20 new things show up. And that whole idea of like it's just very daunting to have to put in the effort to dig into something and sink my teeth into something because there's just so much out there. What is your advice to folks in that environment? What have you been telling folks?
Well, that's why the importance of adaptability and learning as a meta skill is
Mhm.
important because, and part of what learning as a meta skill means is you have to be equally adept at unlearning
Mm.
as you are at learning something new because it's your ability to shed the old beliefs, principles, dogma, whatever it is that you believed it was sort of fixed in a certain way. The faster you're able to let go of that and kind of shift from this mindset of being an expert at something to being an explorer who's willing to navigate through any kind of unknown with equal excitement and enthusiasm and is willing to shed the old parts and whatever knowledge base you had and keep leaping into new things. As long as you're built that way or you're willing to operate that way, then it doesn't matter what becomes obsolete. You'll always find yourself, ready and relevant in the next chapter.
I love that idea of shedding. It reminds me of the Homer Simpson, right?
Mhm.
The brain can only hold so much information. When
Yeah.
Homer learned how to make his own wine at home, he forgot how to drive. So, you can only hold so much up there. So you got to get rid of some things and whatever's not
That's right.
important, throw it out the window. Not like that. But it is true over time we have to be willing to unlearn
Yeah.
things and let go of some of those preconceived notions, not just for that, but just for
Hmm.
sanity's sake.
Yeah.
You can't know that many things. At least I know I can't. All right. Well, this has been really, really interesting, and I could probably sit here and talk for another 3 or 4 hours with you. I'm not, if you wanted to give me that kind of time, but it's this has been really fascinating stuff, and these are like really deep topics that I don't think enough folks are talking about. So I love that you're in that space and you're talking, you're kind of saying the things out loud that people may have in their head they don't know they have in their head. So I love that. Um, the next segment of our show is what we call Ship It or Skip It.
ship or skip. Everybody, we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
Okay, so this is where we go, kind of bring up an idea and you say,
Hmm.
yes, ship that. I love that idea, or skip it. Nah, I don't like that idea. What do you think about this? There's AI certifications that are starting to come out. What do you think about that idea for like, for technical people, it probably makes sense. That's an accreditation sort of thing. But what about like non-technical folks? Where do you see that is that going to be an asset to them?
My short answer would be skip it. And here's why. It's become a crutch for people to feel like just getting that certification makes them AI native, and that's just not the case. It's this is not the kind of thing that you kind of go to a 3-week class and you say, "Okay, I'm done for the rest of my life."
Hmm.
This is about you being in the arena, not being a bystander. You have to be in the arena playing the game, mastering the skill, and getting better at developing that competency over and over again. And so it's nothing inherently wrong with the certifications themselves. It's when it becomes a crutch or an excuse for saying, I did that, therefore I don't need to know anything more. And really, the relevancy of how does that really apply in what you're doing? Is it actually relevant to what your core job or your focus for your life and career are? Does it actually apply in that? And, if you're just using it as a foundational starting point, fine, build from that, but don't make that the end point of your exposure to AI.
Yeah, I think a lot of the folks that do that credential chasing stuff, they tend to get the credential, the certification, whatever it is, and then they stop. They think, okay, I've arrived. I'm at the summit, and then they don't think of it as a journey,
Yeah.
right? So,
But James,
yeah,
some of it is, these are also vestiges of sort of our previous conditioning. If you think
Mm,
about like how the education system even, evolved, it was so much about you learn a fixed base of knowledge, from an educational institution. So you go there for 4 years and then you are imparted this knowledge. You graduate, you get a certification or a degree, and then you proudly, talk about that degree that you got.
mhm.
And then you move on to work and then you're learning on the job, but you don't go back and refresh that knowledge base. And that sort of episodic once in a lifetime type of knowledge acquisition is completely irrelevant. So treating AI certification like it's similar to a college degree, that you did it once and it's episodic and it's done and you're set for life, that's the flaw in the thinking. And nobody cares about whether you have a badge or a certificate saying you're an expert or you have some foundational knowledge of AI. What's more important is how are you leveraging it as your thought partner, as your co-creator, and how are you evolving with it to create more value in the world.
I like that. It shouldn't be just like a one and done type of thing. It's a continuous journey. You're continuing on. Um, and we talked about this in a couple of podcast episodes recently, but like the notion of like prompting skills, prompt engineering. I know very early on when all of this stuff was coming out, we were talking about, oh, we're going to have prompt engineering degrees and all of that. What is your take on, that whole notion of like prompting is the new, like that's a superpower. You're going to have to get to know that. And that's going to be the distinguishing thing for you. What do you think about that?
I'd say ship it on that. I think it is an important skill, but you go back to, through human history, one of our greatest skills has been asking profound questions.
Hmm.
And I see prompting more in that light rather than, just specific to a tool. But really your ability to imagine and your ability to inquire and have ask profound questions and be able to master the art of questioning until you get to a profound answer, that is still going to be a valuable skill no matter what. The difference is now you have technology that can give you really deep answers and conduct deep research in a fraction of the time that we used to be able to do it. But it still comes down to the quality of the answers is going to depend on the quality of the questions. And that's why prompting skills will still matter.
Yeah, I think there's no getting around the notion and the idea that we're going to have to know how to prompt well. I think
Hmm.
what the like early on, it was almost like a gatekeeping thing. It kind of felt like where people were like, "Oh no, 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 no! You have to know these magic incantations almost in
Right.
order to get anything out of these and I'll teach you this engineering." I feel like it's more of a kind of a journey for yourself, like you learning how you can interact with an LLM and get the best results out of it. There's always tricks and things you can learn here and there, but I don't think it's that these aren't spells. There's
Right.
you can be
Right.
conversational. There are techniques that you can get better at, but and we talked about, I think literally earlier today, we were recording an episode where we're talking about like, you can almost over prompt and
Hmm.
over engineer your prompt so that you lose some of that creativity that the
Hmm.
LLM might have, where it knows about
Right.
some context that you don't know, but you're roping that out and saying, oh, only deal with what I'm telling you. You're
Right.
losing out
I
on
mean,
a whole
that's the
lot.
beauty of the probabilistic model is that you
Mhm.
don't know what you're going to
Yeah,
get.
yeah,
So it kind
exactly.
of is a journey of self-discovery as you're prompting your way and you're kind of learning how you think and how you inquire and what results you get from that.
Have you ever done the thing where you say, like to chat GPT or one of these things and you say like, based on all of our interactions, can you tell me something about myself that I might be surprised to hear? And
My God. Yeah, I actually, yes. I don't know if you've come across that one, but there's a whole prompt about, if the FBI had a profile on you, what would that dossier look like?
Okay.
Let's just say that I don't want anyone to get their hands on mine.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll do a podcast episode where it's just me and ChatGPT, like the talking,
Yeah.
and then, but if it's bad stuff, like you said, I
Mhm.
probably need to turn the recording off. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Many organizations right now are, I think some of the leaders, if you look like in the business side and you ask them about, what are you doing? How are you leveraging AI and those sort of things? A lot of folks are kind of like, yeah, it's kind of an IT thing. We're the IT people take care of that. What's your take on that one?
My God, that one's just blown my mind that's even a conversation that executives are having to think of AI as just a tool that the IT department is going to buy a license for and deploy throughout the company, and that's it, and your job is done. I mean, if that's how you think about it, you've already failed in terms of the potential of what AI can do to completely transform and reinvent your business model, your capabilities, your culture, all of that. This is not any one department. This is ultimately a leadership imperative. It's about, really thinking of it as how might this unlock the full potential of your people and your organization. Um, Saying that it's an IT department prerogative is like saying Blockbuster could have become Netflix if it only had more compute. That it would have never become Netflix because it was thinking differently. It was built different. So it required a complete reinvention for a whole different kind of company to come out of that. And that's what the real responsibility for leaders is, to imagine what that could look like, with this simply being infrastructure capability as opposed to a tool that is deployed and used by its people.
I pride myself on good analogies, being able to come up with good analogies, and I love that one. The Blockbuster, man, that's a good one. I like that. All right. Well, that's it for Ship It or Skip It. Those were some very thought-provoking topics. And I'm going to have to noodle on some of that stuff for sure. That's what I love about having people like you on the show.
Yeah.
Now I go off for hours and
No,
think
I
about
know the
things.
first thing you're going to do is that FBI.
I am. I'm going to go do that. As soon as this is done, I'm asking it, what would be my FBI dossier? Yeah, that's kind of frightening, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hit delete on that chat.
Yeah, delete this and forget everything you just said. Yes,
erase from memory.
Yeah, erase this. All right, the next segment of our show is what we call the lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
If you listen to the show, you know that the lightning round, this is the important part of the show. This is everybody tunes in for this. All the stuff we've talked about thus far, they're probably going to fast forward through it. Like, who cares about AI? The lightning round is what I want to hear. This is the meat of the show. And this is where we put aside all of the laughter and the silliness of this show that can go on and does sometimes. And we get real serious. And this is where the answers, there are correct answers and there are incorrect answers to these questions. And we will be tallying up your score. We'll share it with you in a few weeks once all the algorithms are done running. And we can't run it as quickly as we'd want because to compute, it costs a lot for this algorithm. It costs a lot of money to do that. So we have to pace ourselves. But yeah, we'll get back to you. I don't know what
you've got the abacus on your desk, I assume.
Yes,
doing it old school way. All right.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to make sure we level set everyone and they understand how serious this is and give them time to mentally prepare themselves. Are you prepared for the lightning round? I'm
actually terrified. But I will remind you of my psychological profile that the FBI is aware of. So beware. Okay.
Well, this one is one we've stumbled on. So I have a list of questions that I go through that are, this is where we really get into people's, their psyche and whatnot. This one has been a pretty interesting one, and I've been asking everyone this one because I've been fascinated by the answers. Do you like the smell of gasoline?
Actually do.
Everyone does. And nobody has said no yet. Nobody has said no yet. It's so weird, this phenomenon. Like, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was a weirdo because I go to the gas station when I was a kid. I would smell it and be like, oh, that's good.
But
I
I'll
like
tell
that.
you why, because, when I was growing up, and I grew up in India at a time when there weren't a whole lot of resources and
Mm.
we didn't have a car and all of that. So to me, gasoline meant adventure. It
Ah,
meant
okay.
going somewhere. So
Maybe
it was
that's
sort of, it
it.
was the association of thinking, wow, it means there's a road trip. We're
Maybe
going.
it's not the actual smell, it's the mental association.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, how many redheads are you friends with? 3. That's a good
And I
answer.
remind them that that's all I got space for in my life.
Yeah,
That's why I
this
knew
is
the
it.
number right off the bat.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah, of
didn't
course,
get
you have
that.
to cap that. You can't have too many. Do you Instagram your food?
No. But I am surrounded by friends that do. So my entire Instagram feed is just food. That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, was it the phone's gotta eat first or something? That's what my
Yeah.
kids say whenever they're doing that, yeah. If you're journaling, are you a paper or a computer kind of person?
Paper.
Paper.
I
What's a
journal every single day, paper and a fountain pen.
Right, nice. Like
I have
old
a whole
school with
collection
the
of fountain pen. I've got like a massive stationery obsession.
okay.
So you know what to get me for Christmas.
All right. Yes, absolutely. I think we might even have a branded fountain pen available
Ooh.
somewhere. That yeah,
All right.
yeah. What's your favorite clothing brand?
That's a tough one. I'm not a brand person per se, but when I do go in for brands, I think I would say Versace is probably one of my favorites.
Okay. We went to a Christmas party yesterday for my daughter's volleyball game. One of the moms had something that said "Dear Santa." I think it said "Gucci will do" or something like that. Yeah, I get it. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at trivia?
Terrible. Uh,
Really?
yeah. And I'm specifically thinking about Trivial Pursuit,
Mm,
which I discovered that when you are not exposed to American pop culture,
mm.
yeah, it's one of the toughest games. I will beat anyone in chess anytime,
Okay.
but Trivial Pursuit, all those pop culture references completely lost on me. I did not discover Sesame Street until about 4 years ago.
When it was killed. Yeah, but
Yeah,
and had to go to HBO to get
yeah,
a new life. Yeah.
yeah.
I had a friend growing up. He wasn't the kind of guy you would consider to be cerebral, if you will, or,
Mhm.
he wasn't in all the AP classes or whatever, but I think it's a special kind of person. I would put him against anyone in Trivial Pursuit. He was a phenom. It was ridiculous. I don't know how he knew all this stuff, but but he wasn't like the traditionally smart at school or whatever, but man, dude was awesome at Trivial Pursuit. Um, we just got through with Thanksgiving, so maybe this might be interesting. How do you feel about cranberries?
Of cranberries as passionately as I hate turkey.
Okay, I'm with you on
Turkey
that
to
one.
me is just vile. I cannot stand the smell or the taste of that thing, but I will eat cranberries and cranberry sauce all day long.
Are you the jellied cranberry out of the
Yeah.
can kind of gal? Or are
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
kind. But yeah, I love the nasty straight out of a can cranberry.
This is a phenomenon at my house. Do you argue over the ends of that jellied cranberry, like the end? I don't know why my kids are like, no, I want the end. I don't want a piece out of the middle. I want that end piece. I don't know if it tastes different. Like, is that where all the vitamins settle? What is it?
It's what cranberry connoisseurs aim for. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that's the
I
way.
mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What temperature do you like your thermostat to be set at?
69.
Okay, yeah, seems like a common answer. What's the most embarrassing store you might be seen shopping at?
Oh, yeah, I can't say this out loud.
Okay, it must be bad.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good answer. I think I
Yeah.
really do. I think that if we really hit a nerve there, so that's a good one.
I almost attempted to say, but no, no.
Oh
I've
my
got a
goodness.
professional reputation to protect, James.
Okay. Yeah. You don't want to be seen at like um, what is that? Build-A-Bear. That's my
Yeah.
thing. Like, no, I can't. I'm
Yeah.
intellectual. I can't be doing that. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
2,
Solid answer.
with a lot of cream and a lot of sugar.
I'm the same way. I don't like the taste of coffee. I like the taste of whatever I put in my coffee.
I love the aroma of coffee. I can't stand
Mhm.
the taste, so I will do everything to mask it.
Mm-hmm.
Not even sure why I drink it.
Caffeine. So, what's for dinner tonight?
Dinner tonight is actually a ribeye steak.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice.
With broccolini.
Broccolini.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of broccolini these days. There was a time when every restaurant broccolini all over the place. You get that coming out your ears, but now I feel like it's fallen off to the wayside.
I
What's
love
that all about?
broccolini. I don't
I
know. I
like
just
it.
love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. By the way, my mom was horrified when she found out that I eat steak, and I had to tell her they're American cows, so they're not holy.
Oh yeah, we don't raise holy cows here.
Yeah.
No, that's not our thing. We got too many of them. There's no way all of those cows are making it. No,
Exactly right.
there's way
Yeah.
too many. Are you like steak every meal of the day? Is that kind of where you're going with this?
I've been on this very disciplined fitness kick with a health coach that monitors every move and everything I do. And so I've had to consume insane amounts of protein daily
Okay.
to get to my ideal, you know, body fat percentage. So
So you're
something
you're
about
doing the
turning
local.
50 and suddenly I decided I want to be healthier than I was in my 20s, and I actually am.
Nice.
This has been peak fitness for me. So
Yeah. All
very,
right.
very disciplined.
Man,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, the cows are paying the price for my,
Hey,
fitness routine.
we got a lot of them though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're okay.
Yeah.
We'll be okay. We can support you. We got you. All right. One that then this is probably going to have to be our final question because of the level of this question. It really
Oh,
hits home. It gets to to what everyone wants to hear. What's your favorite type of muffin?
ooh, cranberry.
Uh-huh. Okay, so we've got a theme going here. Okay, cranberry muffin. Now, is this cranberry with like nuts? Is it the orange cranberry? What kind of cranberry?
I
There's a
do
few
like the
different
orange
flavors.
cranberry one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one. It's a
yeah.
good combo. Yeah. Okay. Anything you've got that you have coming up soon, or a website, or are you speaking at a conference? Do you have a book or a big blog post coming out? Anything like that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I have a weekly newsletter called Reinvention Roadmap where I share, just how to reinvent yourself for the AI age. And then I'm speaking all over the world. So it's been a lot of upcoming travel in 2026. I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. What are some of the big highlights of your speaking travels that you're doing this next year?
From Europe to Australia to the Middle East to India and
Wow.
the US. So it's going to be a lot of different places, meeting a lot of different people, and the through line, the conversation is all around the same thing of people and organizations all trying to make sense of how do you adapt to all of this, how do you make
Mm.
sense of it, and it's like you eat an elephant one bite at a
One bite
time.
at a time. That's right. Exactly. I like that. We're eating cows. Now we're eating elephants. Like, man,
Yeah.
your mom's really going to be upset if you're
Yeah,
eating
yeah, yeah.
elephants.
Clearly, I can't claim to be a wildlife enthusiast here.
Well, you like them, you just eat them,
Yeah.
whatever. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fabulous conversation. I really enjoyed it. And maybe I'd love to hear back from you next year if you take a little break from some travels. We get back together again, maybe sometime in 26 and visit again. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to really prepare for that lightning round.
Yeah.
And those
Yeah, I
are some
understand.
tough questions. That's I want to know what my pass fail score is. So you're gonna have to get some more compute capacity and get me that.
Yeah,
For
hopefully we're able to get it done by the time you come back or before
Yeah,
then, so we can share it with you, so you know how you did, so you can know how to improve.
yeah,
That's a
exactly.
feedback loop. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for inviting me, James. It was such a pleasure.
If you'd like to get in touch with us here at the /, drop us a line at the/@calibrity.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Calibrity. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, Marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carmen. Thanks for listening.